over 60 years now, the relationship between the US and Cuba has been this constant geopolitical standoff. But right now, that standoff has exploded into a full-blown energy crisis on the island, and it's being fueled by decades of American sanctions. And believe me, the consequences are hitting everyday Cubans, and they're hitting them hard.
And look, this isn't some distant headline we're talking about. For people in Cuba, this is daily life. Just try to imagine your power going out for hours, every single day. Or fuel shortages so bad that the entire public transport system just grinds to a halt. It's a constant, grinding uncertainty about the basics, how you'll get to work, how businesses will even stay open, or what tomorrow even looks like.
And these shortages, they create this massive domino effect. Without fuel, power plants just go dark. Public transport, it just stops running. Airports, they can't refuel planes, which means airlines start canceling flights, and that absolutely cripples the tourism industry, a really vital source of income for the island. And even hospitals are feeling the strain. It's a crisis that really touches everything.
But this didn't just happen overnight. This is really just the latest flare-up in a standoff that's been going on for more than 60 years. So to really understand why things are so bad right now, we've got to go back a bit and understand how we even got here in the first place.
Okay, so the US embargo, or as Cuba calls it, the blockade, was first put in place way back in the early 1960s, right after the Cuban Revolution. Now, over the decades, its intensity has kind of ebbed and flowed. You probably remember the Obama era, right? There was that significant diplomatic thaw, embassies reopened, some restrictions were eased. But since then, that trend has completely reversed, and the sanctions have come back with a vengeance, this time targeting one very specific area.
So that's the big question, isn't it? If this blockade has been around for decades, why is this crisis happening now? What makes this moment so different?
Well, the answer is a pretty big strategic shift. The most recent wave of sanctions has a laser focus on Cuba's energy sector. The goal, it seems, is to cut off the island's access to fuel, which, as we've just seen, is pretty much the lifeblood of its entire economy and daily life. But you might be wondering, how can the US actually control who sells oil to Cuba?
Well, it's done through something called the extraterritorial effect, and it is an incredibly powerful tool. What it means is that US sanctions don't just apply to American companies. Oh no. The US can penalize businesses, banks, or shipping lines from any other country in the world just for doing business with Cuba. And because the US dollar is so central to, well, all of global finance, the threat of being cut off from the American financial system is usually more than enough to scare off most potential partners.
So, as you can imagine, this policy has created two starkly different narratives. On one side, you've got the official justification from Washington, and on the other, the official accusation from Havana. Let's break down these two opposing viewpoints.
From Havana's point of view, this is nothing less than a full-on economic war. The government argues that this blockade isn't some targeted surgical tool. No, they see it as a deliberate strategy designed to cause maximum suffering, with the ultimate hope of provoking social unrest and, well, the collapse of the government itself.
And this, right here, is the core of the deadlock. Washington frames the sanctions as a tool for political pressure, a way to promote human rights and push back against Cuba's alliances with rivals like Russia and China. But Havana, they see it as an illegal policy of collective punishment, one that strangles their economy, hurts ordinary people, and is the #1 cause of the country's problems.
And when it comes to the international community, well, they have a pretty clear opinion on this. For decades now, the United Nations General Assembly has voted, overwhelmingly, to condemn the embargo. In the most recent vote, the result was 187 countries in favor of ending it, with only 2, the United States and Israel, voting against. Now, this vote isn't binding, but it really shows you the depth of global opposition to the policy.
But, it's almost never just one thing, is it? Well, the blockade is clearly a massive, massive factor. The full picture here is, well, it's a little more complex.
So that leads to the next question. Can everything really be blamed on the blockade? Or are there internal factors inside Cuba that are also playing a role in this crisis?
The reality is, it's a combination of two powerful forces. On one side, you have that intense external pressure from the blockade, which makes it nearly impossible to get credit and scares away investors. But on the other side, you also have Cuba's own internal fragilities, a highly centralized economy, low productivity, a heavy reliance on imports. The blockade didn't necessarily create these internal issues, but it acts like this massive weight, stressing an already vulnerable system to its absolute breaking point.
So this brings us to the really high-stakes game that's being played right now. With the situation so dire, what are the potential outcomes? I mean, what happens next for both Washington and Havana?
For the United States, it's a serious dilemma. The whole goal of maximum pressure is to weaken the Cuban government. But if they push too hard, they could trigger the very thing they want to avoid: massive social instability and a migration crisis that would have major political consequences right back at home, especially in a state like Florida.
And for Cuba, the path forward is like walking a tightrope. The government is scrambling to find new energy suppliers, trying to strengthen its relationships with allies like Russia and China, and at the exact same time, they're having to consider accelerating the very internal economic reforms they've been so slow to implement, all in the hope of attracting some much-needed capital.
So, what we're really seeing here isn't just a simple conflict. It's a geopolitical chessboard, and it involves global powers, huge economic pressures, and complex regional strategies. And who's caught right in the middle? 11 million people on an island. So the final question really is this: in a global power struggle with so many powerful players, who ultimately gets to decide Cuba's future?